You're tuned in to Around the Lens, the internet's only live streaming roundtable discussion podcast, featuring Zach Roberts, Ron Hamilton, Travis Keys, and your host, David J. Murphy. Hello and welcome to Around the Lens, episode 164. If you're wondering why we're not live or video right now, we've got some technical difficulties. We're working through it, and we're going to give you a great show no matter what. I am your host, David J. Murphy. Joining me, as always, are my co-hosts, Zach Roberts. Hello, Zach.
Hello. How goes it?
Goes well. Welcome back. We haven't had you on in a few weeks. How you been?
I'm alive, barely. But I'm finally back home finally. So
nice. Where were you?
Traveling, working on my documentary about white supremacy in America. And so I've been doing fun things like going to Fort Sumter and going to civil rights museums and covering what was the last, actually it was supposed to be a Klan rally, but it thankfully turned into be a canceled Klan rally that I covered. So, and going to a Klan bar in the middle of Georgia, that was super fun. That was one of the weirder and more terrifying things I've ever done. But yeah.
Oh my God. Did you fear for your life, or were you just...
Oh, no, I didn't fear for my life. The Klan never showed up, thankfully. Good or bad. I didn't get photos, but good that they didn't show up.
Yeah.
Because it's always good when they don't show up. But yeah, no, it was just a super duper freaking racist place, with, Confederate flags and, colored only signs, and the bathroom itself was its own extravaganza of horrible racial terms and slurs drawn on the wall. So yeah, it was fun. Super fun.
So, I mean, this is a bar that exists that people can go to and drink at?
Yeah, it's the Georgia Oyster Bar. It's in the middle of Georgia. It's like an hour and a half outside of Atlanta, and it's actually kind of famous for being terrible and racist. Like, the owner puts out like road signs out on the street, like celebrating. I can't. You can look up Georgia Oyster Bar and find it, like just celebrating horrible racist. He's a huge racist troll, and he wants the attention. And so, like, I took a bunch of photos, and I'll end up probably using some things in my documentary, but I haven't even posted a piece about it or not. But so that's
not to be confused with the Blue Oyster Bar from Police Academy.
No, or either the Blue Oyster Cult. Weirdly, but yeah, no, but it was weird because that was the day I actually went to 2 different oyster bars on the trail to try to meet up with a bunch of Klan members for a cross burning they were planning. So that was a very weird event, a weird day.
Wow.
But such is my life now.
I can't even imagine a place like that is allowed to exist. But I guess.
Oh yeah, no.
Freedom of speech, right?
Yeah, isn't that
Gotta
great?
love it. Indeed.
Makes me question it.
Oh man.
Anyways, glad to have you back, Zach, in one piece, safe and sound. Of course, my other co-host is Travis Keys. Travis, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing fantastic. What's going on, guys? Zach, it's been too long. You can't disappear for that long anymore.
Yeah.
We don't know if you've gotten like lynched or something. We gotta check in with us every once in a while.
No.
Zach, you need to mark yourself safe in Facebook all the time.
Exactly.
On yet another. No, I got another white supremacist rally. I got to go into Ohio next month. So, yeah.
Sounds fun.
All right, well, put us on live stream so we're there with you. Anything new with you, Travis? Any major craziness happening in your life?
Things are good. Been doing a lot of shooting and have a big shoot this Friday, kind of a conceptual shoot that's going to be fun in the studio with a lot of collaborators and stuff like that. So I'm very excited about that. Something that I've been wanting to do for a while with a bunch of people and pulling a great team together that I've met over the years, and kind of everybody coming together at once, which is always fun when you've met people over the years and you get to collaborate and pool all those talents together, which is fabulous.
Awesome, buddy. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we can't wait to see the fruit of that work. Hopefully you'll be able to show it to us soon.
Absolutely. It's being filmed and interviewed, so we'll have a little sizzle reel from it.
Nice. Awesome, buddy. We'll post that on aroundthelens.com for sure. All right. Well, we've got some great guests on the show tonight. I'll start off with our first guest. Make sure I'm saying this right. Yui Mock.
Yes, correct.
All right. Yui, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm a press photographer based in London. I work for the Press Association, which is a multimedia news agency and a wire service, much like AP or Reuters or AFP. And I've been there for 19 years, and I cover everything from news, politics, royalty, sports, entertainment, just about everything. All human life I cover, basically. Mostly based in the UK. I work and live in London daily, and that's all I usually pick up my jobs. But I do travel abroad as well. I mean, I've just come back mid last week from Morocco, covering the Prince Harry, Meghan Markle tour of Morocco. It's a short tour. Stayed there for about 4 days in total. It was about 3 days worth of work. And yeah, just back in London doing the rounds. And I got my first job in about 4 hours. So I'll have to get some sleep after this, quick bit of sleep, and get back into town. It's actually, first job is they're having one of those Fearless Girl sculptures in the city of London. I think it's the one where it was in Manhattan or somewhere. Place next to a ball, that girl with her representing strength of women and whatnot, and gender equality and all that. I was in the financial district of Manhattan.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
It's a similar one. Having one tomorrow, this morning in London. So that's my first job of the day in about 4 hours time.
Yeah, I was thinking to myself, like, obviously the technical difficulties don't help, but for all of us, it's a relatively reasonable hour at night, and for you, it's 2 a.m. in the morning. So I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's quite a unique experience. I've not been on a podcast, let alone an American one. So it's all good. It's all good experience.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Well, I'm glad that we're your first and also last podcast. Probably after this, we're like, oh, I'm done with these podcast things. Yui, so glad to have you on. We're doing a series this year in terms of just highlighting folks who have been featured on top 100 lists. You were on the top 100 list, I believe, of CNN, right?
Or Time or something like that. I know the Time.
One of those lists, yeah. Who knows?
Let me double check here. I have you as Time top 100 photography photos, and it was for your photograph of the royal wedding, right?
Yes.
Can you talk to us a little bit about that photograph? Kind of describe it for us, for those who, again, we're all listening, and then kind of talk a little bit about how you got that shot.
It was quite a unique angle. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle got married in May of last year, and as is tradition with royal weddings, after the ceremony they ride in a carriage. Luckily the weather was good, so they had an open top carriage through the town of Windsor, and then made their way back into Windsor Castle, where the rest of the reception was. And I happened to be positioned as a pool position. It was just me, the only stills camera up there, along with one other camera. That was a BBC broadcast camera. So it was me and him sharing that quite privileged position. And it was above an archway, about 100 feet above them as they came past. Below, and that's where I got my now quite well-known shots of a bird's eye view, and it went viral thanks to social media. Everything goes viral these days, doesn't it, really? But somebody picked up on it and said, very nice shot, they really liked it, and they didn't know who it was, so I just chimed in, just said, oh, thank you very much, it was taken by myself, and blah, 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 gave some details. And then somebody else decided to make a hashtag, as everybody makes a hashtag these days about everything. So pertaining to Diana's view, as if Prince Harry's late mother would have viewed the occasion, from the heaven above or wherever she is. So yeah, it was quite a unique angle, and I think everything came into place for me that day. So I can't see it on the screen. I'm sure you're going to show it.
Absolutely.
So
We'll bring it up to the edit.
Yeah.
We'll make sure to link to it so people can check that out. How did it feel to be part of, chosen for the list?
Yes, it's an honor to share, especially with, there's so many other fantastic photographers working, around the world, globally, really. Photography's never been more democratic in one sense. But with all the competing with all the established wire agency photographers, the creme de la creme from like Reuters, AP, AFP, all these top agencies, it's an honour to be included in their company.
Nice.
As you well know, some years are better than others. You go on streaks, and sometimes you have dry spells where you can't shoot anything to save your life. But sometimes it works out for you. So it shouldn't be taken for granted, and it's it's a bit of motivation to keep on trying, I guess.
Definitely. And what did you shoot your this photograph with?
I'm a Canon shooter. I used to be a Nikon shooter until about 2005, and then switched over to, my company switched me over to Canon, and I stayed there ever since. I started on 5Ds, then the 1D series, and then now I'm on the 1DXs, Mark IIs. So that's my normal cameras. For that job, I had about 5 bodies, 5 different lenses, each serving a specific purpose, all laid out, and some were pre-focused and pre-exposed, whatever. So I didn't have to think about it too much when the time came. So I just placed everything down like surgeons tray, I guess, before an operation. Depending on the distance to me at the time, because they were riding towards me. You probably don't know the layout of Windsor Castle. There's a great park which spreads out for about 2 miles in the distance, and their final run of their carriage procession was heading straight towards me, and it was like Lawrence of Arabia, that famous scene when at the start of the film, is Omar Sharif is a little dot hazy dot in the distance, and he very slowly, and it takes 10 minutes in the film, and it took about half an hour for me in real life for actually them to come up to any reasonable distance before they disappeared underneath me. So yeah, I had all the lenses laid out and used one by one, as and when the distance required.
Nice.
Well, I was well prepared, put it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's great. 5 cameras and 5 lenses. That is definitely prepared. You did not want to miss the shot.
No, but the most important aspect for me that day, because I saw through this like open hole, which was only protected by a metal grating. Otherwise, if I dropped something, it would have fallen straight down onto them, basically. So my first actual thing that I did when I got up there was emptied everything that could, be droppable, basically.
Yeah, you didn't want
coins,
to be that guy.
So I didn't want to be on the news myself the next day for any
knock out the future king.
That'd be bad.
That's concerned.
That's a bad way.
I don't think they'd ask you back for the next wedding.
Well, he could watch the wedding from prison. So
Right.
Last year I was shooting that myself. This year,
Get a nice shot from the London Tower.
there you go. An inadvertent assassination attempt,
Yeah.
but I'm glad it didn't go down like that. So glad to have you on, Yui. It's funny you mentioned transitioning between one camera, setup to another in terms of going from Nikon to Canon, because we'll be talking about switching camera systems a little bit later on with our other guest, Alex Garcia. Hello, Alex. Can you introduce yourself?
Hey guys, thanks for having me here. I'm based in Chicago, and so it's a reasonable hour here, and I don't need coffee at this moment. I have been a photojournalist most of my career at newspapers, basically on staff. So I've worked at the LA Times for 7 years, and I worked at the Chicago Tribune for 15, and a couple other small papers as well. And so I left the Tribune about 4 years ago, and have been doing a blend of things. So I call myself an editorial and commercial photographer now, because I'm incorporating a lot of other things, not just photojournalism, although that informs my storytelling and how I approach things. I was recently on the board of the National Press Photographers Association. Was on the board for 3 years to help shepherd that organization through some difficult times, actually. And besides for that, I have taught video and editorial photography online at the School of Visual Arts in New York, and just try to keep myself busy doing things. Recently, I just launched a company called Cuba Workshops. I've spent 20 years in Cuba. My father is Cuban, and I know the country pretty well. I've done tours and things, so I'm actually bringing photographers down there, and we'll have my first one in a couple months. And actually, Travis and I were together on one of the SVA Cuba trips a year or two ago. So that's where we first met.
Yep.
And so it's kind of doing what a lot of photojournalists do when they go on their own. They just create a blend of different things, just to sort of keep doing their photojournalism and also keep the money coming in. So.
I also know you're being a little modest because you've won a couple of good prizes. I think one that I think our president so badly is trying to get, which is called something. I love Pulitzer.
Yeah, he would love to win the Nobel, right? So I'm kind of banking on that, because then he won't shut down travel to Cuba. No, I actually was part of a Cuba Pulitzer, but I've also won the World Press a photo award too for work actually in Havana, of all places, and just a bunch of awards through the MPPA and POY as well. So I've won a fair share of awards, So sure.
Awesome, man. Well, so glad to have you on, and definitely would love to talk to you in more detail about obviously your award wins and stuff like that. We've had a few Pulitzer Prize winners on the show, and it's always interesting to hear about the experience of winning, because it's obviously something very few of us will get the opportunity to do. I know that how was it to go? Did you actually go to the award ceremony in person and get your award?
No, it was a group award. So there was a bunch of photographers. It was related to gridlock at O'Hare. So it was a very funny story. The newspaper was it was at the Chicago Tribune. The newspaper was trying to negotiate with the FAA to get permission for all of us to scatter around the entire airport. Now, as you can imagine, from most public information officers' perspective, having a whole bunch of journalists running around a airport is not what you really want to have happen. So they were trying to choose the cleanest, nicest, best day that they could, and they ended up choosing 9/11, which was not the 9/11 that we're familiar with. It was the year before, but it happened to be the worst day of air travel for that entire year, and because weather shut everything down. So I can't lay to claim that it was just a single picture of mine or of anybody's that really made the difference. It was more the entirety of everything that we showed and talked about and reported on that day. So Yeah, it was a fun experience to be a part of, and I'm sure it was probably the worst day for the PIO that day. So
Yeah, I bet.
He's still on medication from that story.
Right. Right. It went. Yeah. It
Oh,
just they did not. And I don't think entirely that the story that we said we were going to tell ended up being the story that we told. You know how that works. I mean, you
Yeah.
go in, you're not lying. You're going in with
Yeah.
good intentions. You're like, this is a story we'd like to say, and then, of course, news happens, and then you got to follow it. So
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, you mentioned you won some NPPA awards, right?
Indeed, yeah.
Well, we're our first topic this evening is all about the NPPA awards. This is actually something you brought to our attention, Zach. The Best of Photojournalism. The NPPA had their Best of Photojournalism contest, and of course, they announced their winners from that competition. They do every year. Zach, you brought this to our attention. What were some of your favorite pictures from this year's set?
One moment. I'm just trying to bring that back up.
They're not all there on the website yet.
Yeah, that's actually, I think I brought attention to it, but I was just trying to bring up the rest if they're what is the most update, because I think what we have as the link on our story is last year's.
Yeah. So
got it.
the way to see the photos is to go to the Twitter feed for NPPA, and what the judges have done, because everybody, it's still finishing up, and it's still
Right.
kind of the video hasn't even been, the TV hasn't been judged yet. So what they did is they tweeted out screenshots of like Photo Mechanic of the winners, and so that's on the Twitter feed right now. They haven't had time to update the website yet, but yeah. So and they're not all there either. But what's great is to see some of the names that I don't know some of you guys, but I mean, I grew up looking at Carol Guzzi's work, and I'm just amazed at her longevity and her continual ability to just produce work that always seems to just blow right past everybody. I mean, I remember once when I was on assignment, it was covering the Mormon Trail, and I ran into this photographer from an agency, and he was just complaining about Carol Guzzi, just about how like she just seemed to know where everything was going to happen before it happened. And,
Sixth sense of like anticipating everything.
Yeah,
Scott Olson is my person.
Yeah,
Scott Olson is the guy that always he at Ferguson, and then there's been like a couple different stories where I had a photo. He and I had a photo of the same thing, except his photo was just like, "Are you kidding me?" Like just so much better, the better angle, the better lighting, the better. He had the right lens on, and I'm just like, it was like 2 years, like I think it was 2014 and 2015, 2 years. I just could not do that. It was like hilarious to be like, I'd get like, oh, really great photo, and then oh yeah, Scott Olson, okay,
Scott's here again.
Sure. Like
Damn.
I would find I gotta try to get him on the show at some point, just so I can literally tell him that story.
Exactly.
I'd be like, you have been my bane and the guy that I've looked up to, but at the same
I
time,
love you, I hate you, I love you, I hate you.
He's interesting because he's I think he's a former Marine, or at least he's been in the military. And David, you might relate to this. I always think that like to really that if they weren't doing if they weren't winning awards in photojournalism, a lot of photojournalists would excel in other areas of their careers. For example, like I think he's a great strategist, right?
Yeah.
And so I would think that if he wasn't a photographer, he would be a great person to, lead you into battle. I mean, because he's just like the kind of guy who just seems to know where things are going to happen, where things are not going to happen.
Yeah.
Rick Loomis has that same sense of things. I mean, I don't know if he won anything this year. I didn't scan every single name, but he also had that same sense of where things could happen. And so anyway, I think that what you're seeing reflected there in the awards, every year, especially this year, is just some of the people who are They just seem to have that uncanny sense, as you said,
Do
Zach.
you think that's something that they just built over time, or is it something that inherently they had and they just with time got even better? But I always wonder if you, because I always say some artists and musicians, they were born with it. But I know certainly, I started late as a photographer, and each year I'm amazed at how much I learn, and I can't wait to see what I'm going to know in 5 years or 10 years from now. But some of these people it seems like they have it from the get-go. What do you think?
I think that's totally true. They've got it from the get-go. Whether it's nature or nurture, I don't know, but it's. I mean, there are some things obviously that you learn over time. Like
Yeah.
in any type of photography, you learn how to be more efficient, and you learn to basically. You're not flailing around trying to find a picture. You're basically just, okay, I know where the image is going to be, and you go and get it, right? But I think that there are some people who are just these phenomenal, pre-natural kind of people who just figure things out at an early age.
They're precogs.
They're precogs. Yeah, absolutely. I was impressed. If you did look at the Twitter feed, I think the news was kind of predictably the photos were about immigration, right?
If you're on this right now, if you open up the chat window on the left bottom hand side, I put a couple links from the award winners that were tweeted out.
Right.
And so you can open up that window. Obviously, it's a small Lightroom thing right now, but I think a lot of the images you recognize if you look at the photo feeds of the week and things like that. Like that on the whose is it here?
Odyssey of Hope on the immigration.
Well, I was even just thinking of Josh Edelson.
That one. Yeah,
the
that was
airplane
amazing.
photo in the forest, things like that.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
I recognize seeing that photo. And I'm Josh, who we just had on. Was it 2 weeks ago? Last week? Yeah. So it's good to see. He is a fantastic photographer. I'm actually surprised to see him win for something other than his incredible California fire photography,
right?
which is usually what he wins stuff for.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, Mike Fender's photo of the Hurricane Michael boat was just crazy. You look at that, boat on the side and the kayakers alongside.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's just amazing. What's the story behind that airplane in the middle of the trees?
I used to know.
know
I knew it briefly. I'm gonna have to look it up now, but
Yeah, that's
I don't know.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's funny too because with a lot of pictorials, you always think that it's going to just be about light composition and graphics. But I mean, I was a judge of POI, not the MPPA, Best in Photojournalism, and
Right.
you think it's going to be about that, but ultimately, the judges tend to gravitate towards content. I mean, it's what we dedicate our lives to, right? So, if there's going to be an image that not only has all these aesthetics to it, but then also has some incredible, content, it's always going to win, right? As opposed to some cheap silhouette that you might see somewhere. So,
Do you know if these are taken by drone? Is there a lot more drone photography now?
that's a great question. Yeah, I
Well, I
don't.
was going to say, I was looking at the pictorial shots here, and it's looked like half of them are shot from above, either
Yeah.
via
It-
helicopter or probably drone.
Yeah.
Definitely seeing a lot more drone awards and a lot more drone photography enter into this now.
I know that a lot of the firework now is because I know most of the photographers in California working like Noah Berger and Josh Edelson. I know both. I know Noah is. I'm not 100% sure on Josh, but they're certified drone. They have drones and everything like that. And so if you see any of their aerial work, 9 times out of 10 it is via drone. Just because they know the process and they get to go through, they have to go through fire departments and make sure that everything's cleared. So they don't put up a drone to take a photo unless it's been cleared by the fire department. So they're not going to be that person that interferes with a fire plane, stopping.
Yeah, he actually, if you look back in the archives of and see him talking about putting up a drone and how they had to clear it with the FDA for the the flight FCC, and how he only had a limited window, and how he was charging a battery as soon as it came out and throwing up a drone again. And he was telling he thought he almost lost a drone. He had sent it out so far that he had lost signal and was worried that it wasn't going to come back. But he knew it was just had to get this picture. So it's a great episode of him talking about this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Check that out. I don't remember what number it is, but it was only a couple weeks ago. And I was going to say, at first I looked at the pictorial and I was like, oh man, nothing but drone shots. And then I looked at obviously at the news and the other ones that you posted up there, sports and whatnot. And it's good to see people are still down on the ground getting photos as well. Can't shoot everything with drones.
In the cheap seats.
Jeez, kicking it old school.
The cheap seats.
Like I always say, I went into this business to be the one hanging out of the side of a helicopter, not running a remote control down on the ground. So
you just need a bigger drone.
one that can
you can hang off of, right?
Like 300 pounds, so it's me and my camera equipment. Then I'd be happy to just fly along.
What was also neat to see, not the photos, but just on the list as I went through it, was just seeing like John Moore from the Getty Images on there, and just he came through Chicago recently, talking about his work on the border and immigration, and when you go deep on a topic like that, it just yields images that are just going to rise to the top. And so it's just great to see that he won first for breaking news story for undocumented, and of course he was the person who had taken that picture that got all that attention, and it was misinterpreted, and then he had to clarify and everything like that. But
it's so frustrating though, watching, you see, because a photo like that comes out and then immediately you have the feeling that, oh my God, I need to go and cover that story. And I've been covering off and on immigration, not only immigration, but also the border, since 2014. But since I live in upstate New York, and flying,
that's right next to the border.
Not that
different border. Different border.
We don't have a quote unquote problem, and I'm putting up air quotes here with Canadian immigration. Even though it is becoming harder and harder to actually cross the border. But
immigrating north to Canada.
Oh, they might not let us leave at a certain point. But I'm only an hour and a half away from the border, so. No, but the fact that you do realize that I can't get those photos, and that you're not able to, especially as a freelancer, where I have no staff that's figuring things out while I'm flying down,
right,
like that. It's just and then you get really frustrated by these guys who are doing incredible work and basically living at the border, doing nothing but this story for months, if not years of their lives. And you're like, I got nothing when I went down there for a week. And you're like, well, I have to develop all new contacts every time I go down. I'm like, I finally now, after going down twice at that border, twice at the San Diego, down in California border, and a couple along other points along the border, I've covered different things. And it's just finally now I have a human contact that I can call on and do translation and things like that. And it's only taken me 3 trips to actually get those contacts. And I'm I feel now I can next time, because we assume there will be a next time, that the board flares up and it becomes a story of, that wires want to purchase and things like that. That it might, I'll be ready to go, but it only took 3 round trip flights down there.
I mean, props. Yeah, seriously, props to people who are not connected to a news organization that can create contacts for you with a reporter, that can have your back, that can finance you for 3 weeks on end. I mean, props to anybody who can do it freelancing on their own. And usually what ends up happening is they end up getting, some kind of support, maybe from a foundation or maybe from a news organization, but it's not the same kind of thing.
Yeah,
not the same level of support.
Yeah, no.
I want to say my favorite photograph from the sets that you shared, Zach, and I'll make sure to post the show notes for those of you who are listening, was from the sports set, and this might be the father in me speaking, but that shot with the kid getting trampled by the sheep, I feel so bad for the kid.
Well, you gotta have a mutton at least every year in an annual photo contest. It's like it just seems to like I don't know. It just seems that like I see one every other year at least. Or something.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, I hear you. That's kind of traumatic to see that happen.
Yeah, of all the photos, that affects me the most. But
And that's why children should be wearing a helmet right there. Even though the sheep's hoof is completely missing the helmet and hitting the kid in the side of the face. But
yeah, it's a little dangerous. I just yeah.
No, but definitely,
yeah, he definitely got the moment. Definitely got the moment.
Yeah.
Or she. It's AtL Photo. I don't know who that is.
definitely a great series of shots, and I think we'll discuss this in more detail next week when they're all posted online and able to look at for sure. But definitely some great stuff in there, and about Carol Guzzi, yeah, she's awesome. Yeah. I saw her in Puerto Rico, so she's a great photographer, and would love to have her on in the future.
Isaac Hale, props to Isaac.
Yep.
What did Isaac Hale do?
Oh, he was the AtL Photo. I wasn't sure who it was. So
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Any particular faves from your all's take from the what you're able to see?
I've not. I'm just when you mentioned it's all on Twitter, the up-to-date pictures. That's the only time I've just had to browse them now.
Okay.
Because on the website you said they're out of date.
Yeah. It looks like that's last year's. Yeah. So
they'll get it up soon enough. I mean, just some background about the contest. I don't know how much people understand what's going on with it, but so this is the first year that it's been at the Grady College of Journalism and Mass Communication, and it's a big move for the MPPA for this to happen. They're really excited. The school was just really excited to have the contest. They have the other broadcast awards that are part of the school as well, and so to have the MPPA's photojournalism or the premier contest in their eyes, to be there is just a big thing. So they're committing a lot of resources. Sony is committing a lot of resources, and they've changed the categories. They added more categories, make it a little bit more reflective about how things are happening in today's visual environment. And then on top of that, there was also they changed the structure of payment. So if you want to enter now, you have to pay. If you're a professional, it's $75. But if you're a member, it's free.
Yep.
Okay? So it just makes sense to join.
Membership, yeah.
I mean,
yes, it does.
Yeah, I mean, it's also the right thing to do, right? I mean, our organization only has as much power as the people who are in it, and so we can't complain and all that about the state of photojournalism if we're not willing to sort of gather together and use our collective power as photographers. So.
Who can enter? Is it only professional working photographers in the agencies and in the media, the papers? Is it open to amateurs?
Yeah, it's open to people, to anybody who wants to join. Really?
Yeah, freelancers or whoever. You don't have to be assigned. Yeah.
Working in the American industry rather than
no,
not at all.
Yeah. In fact, there's a lot of photographers. I think what was it? Was it the Danes who were basically sweeping a lot of awards for a while in the States?
Danes.
Yeah. Those darn Danes doing it again.
You know what else the Danes love? The Danes love their Sony cameras, and so did Alex Garcia.
Oh, what a change!
What a segue!
That is a segue.
Felt a little trying, but
I certainly know you started on a Nikon, and what I remember those days. What tell us about your? Obviously, you just wrote a story that was published on Sony Alpha Universe, and about your switch from Nikon to Sony. And tell us about the evolution of obviously using Nikon for so long, I believe. And going to. I don't think it was a quick, smooth transition, but it was something that was pretty cool. No.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't smooth. It's going to be hard for me to describe this because I got Zach here. He's like shaking his head. Fool. He's like saying "fool." He's like mouthing "fool."
Shame.
There's two of us Sony people here right now. It's all good.
So it was yeah. So I was shooting a long time. Well, here's the thing. Like Yui, I actually we switched when I worked at the Tribune. We switched everyone over to Canon. So I had Nikon at home, and then I had Canon at work. And so, and I liked the Canon, but man, it was heavy. Like the 1DX I had, it's like the best. But the 1DX with the 7200 on it was like, I mean, I'm not kidding you. Like a bunch of photographers were dropping like flies because their backs were giving out at that time, and I was one of them. So, anyway,
it just means you don't have to go to the gym. It's 2-in-1 benefits, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right. He's challenging my manliness. I can't let this go. So, all right. So anyway, so then I left the Tribune, and then I went back to my Nikons, right? And I had I had Nikons from 25 years ago. It was just Nikon is just synonymous with photojournalism, growing up, and but it was getting to the point where everything was going to video, and Nikon doesn't have the cameras do video, sure, but they didn't have the high-end market. And I was looking at, as filmmaking and as you want to finesse your craft higher and higher, and I was realizing the Nikon, I didn't want to buy all these Nikon lenses, all this glass, right, and then not be able to use it on a native camera if I wanted to upgrade to a higher video camera. So then I'm like, but so of course I didn't have Canon anymore. Well, then I was using Canon for my video, so I had a C100, but I didn't want to invest in too much Canon glass because I couldn't use it on my stills. So I was stuck in between two systems for a while, and it got to a point where mirrorless was becoming a thing. I was with Travis and Tony Gale and Katrina Eisman, who are like this triumvirate of Sony experts to have with me in Cuba at the time, and I was loaned an A7S II and used that in Cuba. And the first post actually I wrote was about how mirrorless is going to change photojournalism because it is incredible in terms of low light. You can see what you're getting while you're getting it. You don't have to guess, shoot, chimp, right? You can just shoot and plow through. And then also you have that quiet shutter, which in some points I would have loved to have had when you're photographing a grieving family at a funeral, at in any situation where you don't want people to know that you're taking a picture. And it's not like this fake quiet shutter that like Canon and some other brands. Yeah. Right. It was actually quiet.
Ridiculously quiet.
You can't hear it. It doesn't make any sense.
Disturbingly quiet.
Right. And so, I just used that. I'm like, wait, so Sony's got this high-end video and I can get glass. And I mean, I'll be honest with you though, there is a learning curve to Sony that because you can highly customize your camera. When I first looked at the camera, I was like, what the heck is this?
Oh, I remember.
Confusing. What? And like Travis was like, yeah, hey man, don't worry about it. It's all good. And then he's like, you just got to do this. And then it was like, you just got to buy the right glove. And then
was there an actual moment where like, when it really kind of clicked in your head to the Sony to like, all right, I'm feeling this now. And what keeps you there that doesn't want you to move back, that it's so amazing about the Sony camera that you don't find in another camera for you?
Well, I mean, I can't. I know that Nikon and Canon are doing their best to catch up to Sony.
Yeah.
Right. And so I can't speak to what they're at now and what they're doing. I knew at the time that Sony had this eye autofocus thing, which was just like blew my mind because after you reach 45, your eyesight just goes down. And it was going down. So to have this thing that tracks the person's eye and keeps your focus was just amazing. And So it's the lightness of the camera, it's whisper quiet, it's the fact that Sony's been doing it for 5 years longer than everybody else has been doing it. And honestly, when I first tried a Sony mirrorless camera at like Photo Plus conference in New York some years ago, I was like, what is this thing? I didn't even get it.
Wasn't quite there yet. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, kudos to Brian Smith and to
The early
Benjamin
adopters.
Lowy.
Yeah.
Those guys who they jumped on it and they saw the future and made it happen. But I really like how light it is. It's just I can have self-control shoulders and I can be my flabby wimpy self. Right, Yuri? Anyway.
And in a couple of weeks, they're updating that eye autofocus, which is already amazing to track animal eyes and other objects, and it's going to be insane.
I don't do too many animal portraits, so I'm not that excited about that.
Yeah.
Too, but
what about your kids?
We won't go there. We won't go there. This is on the internet. So, but yeah, I mean, I do. There's a nostalgia aspect to the Nikon that I definitely miss, and there's some people who I knew who worked for Nikon branding that if I had stuck around, maybe I could have gotten some work from them. But at some point in time, it's like I just needed to make a change that made sense.
You're doing a lot more video now work, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm amazed actually how much it's taken over. Here's the funny thing: video takes over your career almost like video takes over a shoot when you try to shoot this, right? It's just like it just takes over because you're like the audio needs to be everything, and then you need tons of images for your timeline, and so that's what's been happening is people have been coming to me saying, video, in part because people think about video first when they go to redo their website or to stay current or to do what's happening because everyone's saying, oh, you gotta do a video, right? So all of a sudden clients are like video, and you can just feel like echoes of what their boss just told them to do. And so the question is, are you gonna do video, or are you gonna basically just let someone else not only do the video but also the stills that are going to come along with it?
Yeah. Yui, are you doing any video on your work, or?
Yeah, for a few years now, we do get asked to squirt a bit of video every now and again. That job tomorrow morning, I've got to attempt to do a little bit of video. But the problem is, you do one or the other exclusively, and that's fine.
Right.
But if you have to do double duty on any job, you're gonna screw both of it up, aren't you? Really? Yeah. Something's gonna happen. You're not gonna get the best out of one or the other.
Yeah.
That's always a danger. But I mean, my agency does have a lot of video journalists, but on the rare times that they're not available or someone's not nearby, then you do have to help out. Be it on your phone as a last resort, which is phones is not bad quality,
No, they keep getting better.
And but on the cameras, ergonomically, I don't know what it's like with the Sonys, whether you can quickly transition from one set of exposures for your stills and then to all your other settings for instantly for video. I don't know how comfortable that is, switching between both of them. In a pressured situation. But also with video, you need external mics, maybe external screens or whatever. It's the ergonomics of it as well. It's not quite there, but people do. People are more, AFP. I've got friends there and Reuters. They're beginning to do double time on some of their jobs, but I wouldn't say I'm a naturally, gravitate towards video. My mindset, it takes me the editing process as well. Afterwards, it takes a long time.
Yeah.
And bandwidth to send it on the road. If you haven't got Wi-Fi, you're using your your dongles or whatever. That's exponentially larger files than a couple of stills, isn't it? So
just a little bit. Especially if you're doing the 4K, it's 60 frames a second,
Yeah.
100 MMSBS. It's just it gets kind of ridiculous. Although the files on the with Sony are not small.
Is that the big chip, Sony? There's a 42 megapixel.
It is.
It's the hard drive killer, I suppose, on your laptop.
Yeah. I thought it would take a while for me to fill up a 32 terabyte NAS. Not that long.
Yeah.
It's weird. I mean, that's the next thing. It's like, how do you deal with all these? Like, because I mean, Panasonic has their 47 megapixel camera coming out.
Right.
I mean, 100 megapixel cameras are going to be more and more popular next. So it's like, where's sort of the limit there?
Well, the good thing is the SSDs and all this drive they keep getting larger and faster and non-working parts. So hopefully we keep up with it and that's not such a problem anymore.
Who's going to get that 1 terabyte SD card or micro SD card that just came out?
I know, right? That's crazy. They make it smaller. It's already small enough. If they make it any smaller, I'm just never going to find it. There's somewhere to go.
It's such a nightmare. It's just like, I remember having at Ferguson, I was arguing with a friend of mine about, he was just like kept having to switch cards because he only had 16 gig cards, and I was like, oh, you gotta have 32 gig, man. I mean, like, come on, you're shooting video now. And he's like, no, and I'm like, and now I have one card because that's all I've been able to afford for my Nikon, because it's the QXD card, because they're crazy expensive, which is about the only thing I don't like about the the Nikon is that I have all SD cards and the one camera. I can't, but it's 120 gigs. And I was just like, it's terrifying that if I lose this card, I have like 2 days worth of shoots, at least, which now, of course, then I've been shooting a bunch of 4K video, or I've basically been switching back between 4K video and shooting slow motion. So it's like, basically those are the only two formats that I'm even using. And both of them are, a little, a little size using, and it's just this. It's like, I thought 120 gig. I'm like, I'm fine with that. And then no. I forgot to dump photos after a shoot, and then by the end of the day, I was like, oh my God, I have to make decisions and like do in camera editing of which photos I'm going to delete and which photos I'm not. And I'm like, terrifying.
Yeah.
What's even more difficult about that? Well, I don't know what you guys' experience is, but when I'm trying to shoot video and still, at least when I was working at the Tribune, it'd be like, how like you're shooting and you're like, okay, so reassess. What have I got? What didn't I get? What did I get? And you're like, wait, did I shoot that on video or did I shoot that on still? And you're like, wait, do I have to go back and shoot that again, or did I get that? And so it's weird. It's like it's kind of like it's hard to remember in general what you shot, but then also, did I shoot that on video or still? Because you remember moments, you don't remember the actual tool that you're using to capture that moment.
And one of my big things about all the DSLRs, and maybe the Sonys are somehow magically different, is there's not a big red blaring record button. Like it's on the screen and there's a number countdown, but like in the middle of things, you kind of don't pay attention. And, like there's always a button combo that you have to hit, and the record button, even though they've made it a lot better on the Z6, it's still not like on a video camera, which I'm used to shooting video on, like a professional video camera. It's a big freaking button, and you hit it.
The Sony does have a dedicated record button for films.
Yeah, no, I mean, but it just ends up being this problem where I actually missed. I was taking, because you can take stills on the Z6 while you do video, but I somehow didn't hit the record, or I hit the record button a second time, or something happened, and so I was just I thought video recording this entire scene, and I didn't. I was just taking these stills within the video mode. And so I don't have that one clip, and that happened. It was 1,000 times worse than the DSLR issue. But yeah.
I can tap you on that one. I was shooting a drone footage for a feature film in the dead of winter. And I send up the drone, and it's a big search party scene where all these people are walking out into the snow, into the fields, across water. I send the drone up, and I'm flying and doing this great tracking shots, only to realize I didn't hit record.
Yeah.
No.
So I panicked. I said the weather brought down the battery, and luckily,
like, oh my God, the file got corrupted.
It's too cold out. I got to set it up one more time, and then and luckily I got it the second time. But my heart just dropped. I'm like, it's over.
Yeah.
No, I was gonna say, Zach, to follow up on what you said about that's one of the reasons why when the Nikon came out with their new mirrorless, I didn't regret it, because I have a dual card slot, right? With the Sony, which took them a while to get to. So there must be some technology issue that was hanging that up. But because I'm like you, Travis. I that's actually one of the reasons why I like the mirrorless, the EVF, because I'm the kind of guy who left your camera on, shooting a basketball game the night before, and then I leave it on a light bulb setting, and I don't check it. I go and I shoot an entire whatever outside is blue. So that's why I like that's why I like the EVF, and that's why I often shot RAW for that reason, because could fix it later in post. But that's the percentage of stuff now using an EVF, using mirrorless, is 100%, because I know what I'm getting. All
right, Yui, what's your nightmare mistake? What's the one thing that happened to you? You went, oh my God. Nothing. I'm perfect. I've never.
Oh man, I gotta think about that one.
It's quite easy not to hit record, or you don't know whether it's going or not, because there's no blinking lights or anything like that obvious. I don't think I've ever shot anything critical that I didn't have a card in. I think when you get a camera, or used to anyway, it was a default mode. You can shoot with a shutter shoots while with no cars. Always turn that off. It's ridiculous, But I'm, apart from not getting to certain jobs, whether it was my fault or not, then I've not had any major technical issues or anything like that, or idiot moments. Not that I can remember.
Fine, it was just me. No.
Many years ago, I went to a shoot, and I don't know if it was the battery that died, or I didn't have memory cards. Probably didn't have memory cards with me, because that was that's your worst fear, but that's the thing that happens. It's like, oh, I forgot the memory cards. And I believe I either borrowed somebody's point and shoot camera, or I had a point and shoot camera on me or something, and I shot the event with a point and shoot camera.
You make it work. Make it work.
Isn't it sad when something like that happens and your editors don't notice? It's always you're like, oh wait,
this is your best work ever.
Have that moment where you're like, oh, everything went wrong, and everyone's like, oh, that looks fine to me, and I'm like, wait, you're telling me I could shoot with I still think about the fact that I shot most of Occupy Wall Street with 2 lenses, with a 11-16 Tokina, which is a $400 lens, and a 50 millimeter 1.8. Right. And that was probably some of the best work I've still have done, just because it's constricted, and I've started actually going through. I'm like, which lenses don't I need now? I can get rid of my 24-120. I literally never use it now, and it's just it'd be nice to have, I suppose, but it's just started becoming this thing where I think it's better sometimes if you work with less gear and less options.
Yeah.
Relying on, this is actually one thing that's spoiled me, is when I was switching back and forth already between the Z6 and the 750, which is a solid camera, which is still a very good camera. But how much easier it is, and how much lazier you can be with low light, and just how you don't have to think about things on the mirrorless system and than it is on the DSLR that I have. And it's already made me kind of a lazy photographer, because I'm just I I know I can get that shot. I don't have to do anything creative like I used to shoot in low light. Now it's just I know it'll come out because it's got like 51,000 ISO that becomes usable.
Yeah.
Well, one way you can archive your photographs is by printing them, perhaps in magazine format.
There we
Speaking
go.
of magazines, did you all know that there was a photograph called "The Afghan Girl"? Maybe you've heard of it. It's kind of the most famous photograph ever shot. The cover of National Geographic, and it was shot by Steve McCurry, who of course, the photographer who we've all talked about many times on this show for the fact that he has staged photographs and edited photographs and just all kinds of unethical stuff. The person who doesn't even call himself a photojournalist.
Yeah.
Anyways, of course, he's the one who shot the Afghan girl. And this came back in the news recently because Tony Northrup, who is a very famous YouTuber in this industry, did a kind of video about his impressions of the story, understanding the full story of behind this photograph. Because again, there's been a lot of discussion and stories told about the photograph, but never in the exact detail about pretty much everything that really happened. And I'll give you the Cliff Notes version of it. Basically, Steve found this girl in a classroom in a refugee camp, and of course, he noticed her eyes, and he wanted to take her photo. But being an Afghan girl, with of course the by the way, her name is Sharbat Gula. Again, it's 1984. Of course, being within the Muslim faith, they have very tough restrictions with regard to being alone with men and being photographed and taking off their burqa and all kinds of things like this. But Steve was like, "Oh, I want that shot," and so he basically ordered the girl to or had her teacher order the girl to take off her burqa so that he could take the photograph. And this scared the girl to death, and it was traumatized her. But from Steve's perspective, it was like no big deal. And he went on to get this photograph published, and again, National Geographic used it, and again turned into one of the most famous photographs of all time. But again, this was something that had a real deep impact on her, and it was basically completely disregarded by Steve and everyone else who was associated with this photograph. It was disingenuous, basically, how they represented this photograph. It was basically a girl who was fine, and it was showing the hardships of war or something like that, and that wasn't true at all. It was showing the only thing it was showing was her being afraid of Steve and being photographed and what might happen to her because of this photograph. So anyway, there's a lot more to the story. I want to get your all's take in terms of what you think about this story, and Tony's bringing it to light.
Any one of our guests, please start.
Well, to be honest, I've not followed Steve McCurry. He's not been like an inspiration growing up for me or anything like that. I don't know much about him, and I don't know much about his work. I have seen that picture before. It's quite ubiquitous, I guess. But judging by how he's now been found out to Photoshop, left, right, and centre half his career, I can't believe first and foremost he's with Magnum, highly respected so-called home for the creme de la creme of photojournalists and the photojournalist ethic. Yeah, so I don't. It's kind of like it doesn't tally somehow. I don't know. I don't know anything about his reputation at the moment, but right. In my game, it's definitely no. It's very, very. It's not even a grey area really. It's pretty much, cut and dry. It's removal or addition of subject matter or anything in a picture. If you don't shoot what you see in front of you, then it's pretty much misleading in some sense.
Absolutely.
It is kind of amazing how he's been able to kind of maintain his reputation even after going through everything, and everybody it's like, really, this guy's that Teflon, huh?
it's kind of continually amazing to me. I mean, it's not really, being a bit facetious, that amazing to me of what people can get away with when they're famous. Like, when you make other people lots and lots of money, what you can get away with is, if I did this as a photojournalist, or even honestly some of the things that he's done as a travel photographer, not working by the strict guidelines of like the MPPA guidelines or something like that, but as a travel photographer, which usually has there's a little bit more leadway on things. But those would be still if I shot for, I would assume, the travel magazines, they would go, yeah, no, you're editing photos and removing people from frames and moving them around. And, even the photo that we're talking about, that has had, quite a bit of mild editing, or I wouldn't say quite a bit, or mild editing. I would say it's had a considerable amount, far past the MPPA guidelines, I would say, of what you can honestly edit in a photo. And because you can look at just, we've covered this before, but you can look at the different versions of those photos, the original one that was on the cover, and then what has appeared in National Geographics and in prints that he sells for either hundreds or thousands of dollars. I haven't really looked recently what he's selling his stuff for, but it's because there's been a handful of photographers that have had that over the years that are within the McCurry kind of world that get away with this stuff and they kind of continue on. And even at places like Magnum, that you would think would have a higher level of ethics when it comes to, kicking people out. I mean, I don't know what, or advertising them, but I assume they make Magnum a lot lot of money. So I guess they get the leeway.
Nail on the head. Hit the nail on the head. It became about a business and about selling books and prints and money. I think you actually, that's sort of what happened with his career.
I gotta tell you though, we don't all want to agree, because then it wouldn't be an interesting discussion, right? So,
no, you must agree.
Absolutely.
So, all right, I got to take a little bit more of a nuanced view on it. I block just a little background, just so people know. I'm not coming at this as like a sexist pig or something, right? I wrote, at the Chicago Tribune, I had a blog. And I wrote on a weekly basis. There was a column that I had. It was in the newspaper. I wrote about ethics a lot. And that was for 4 years. That became a book. So it's you can look it up on Amazon. My name. I don't make any money, so it's not a plug. But then I wrote a post after I left, because I saw what was happening with WordPress Photo with a lot of the staging of things, and it's just kind of ridiculous. But I will say there's a lot of just messy gray areas out in the field. And so I wrote this thing called a pop quiz about staging photos in photojournalism. And that kind of got around a bit, and it kind of led to a little bit of discussion. And I just laid out a whole bunch of really messy situations, okay, what would you do, A, B, or C in these things? Right. In this particular situation, I don't know how he told the girl to take off her thing. Did he ask the teacher, hey, would she mind taking that off? Because he's completely clueless about customs, and there would be a complete violation of her thing. Did he know that? Did he not know that? I don't know. Yeah. How did he ask her to do that? Did they give him an exception to all the rules about? Thank you for looking to that. Did they make an exception for him because he was the white guy from, another world who was their guest, and they didn't want to disappoint a guest? And did they say that? I mean, I don't know all of the sort of cultural considerations that were going ahead of the time, but I do know this guy is not the first guy. And I think most of us, if we think about things that have happened to us on shoots, whether it be in the cities of our country or even countries abroad, situations where we left it and we're like, that wasn't my best, behavior that I've ever, done. And if somebody were to basically dissect it and analyze it and then put it out there on the internet, I don't know anybody in this industry who would be completely, a choir boy angel, right? So I think that there's a lot of messages. I'm not saying that we've all done what he did, right? We all have our ethics, and we're all say, I'm not going to do that. I would never do that. But there are situations where we have to negotiate. And sometimes people give us stuff that they don't necessarily would give us, and sometimes we would take it because we're desperate and our editor wants it now, right? And so I don't know. I'm just saying I wasn't there. I don't know the exact situation that happened at the time. I do know, having looked at the link and seeing an interview with her on that did you guys watch that talk show with her on it?
No.
I'm like,
No.
man, it's nice to know that like talk show hosts across the world are cringeworthy, because they were asking her the most inappropriate, cultural questions, and they were speaking her language. I mean, it was just like, they were. You could tell the guy was like, "You've got the most beautiful green eyes. Your green eyes are stunning," and this is a very humble woman who's not supposed to call attention to her physical beauty. It's not, so there's a whole lot of inappropriateness all around when it comes to, how do you treat people from different cultures.
But quite apart from whether he was, wasn't ethically, or he didn't know the cultural norms of the subject. Quite apart from that, immediately, I just my thoughts were it's without knowing the background, you just think it's a fashion shoot, wouldn't you?
Yeah. It was,
and that really, that kind of leaves a bit of a taste in the mouth as well, considering the story, the actual story that's trying to tell, about displacement, refugees and all that. And it's like to shoot it in a way that Vogue, could have made a front cover out of.
Right.
I don't know. I found that a bit uncomfortable, just looking at the picture on its
It
merits.
seems, I think that you see his name keep coming back up and the ethics of it, just because there has been multiple incidents with him. If it was just this one thing and there wasn't multiple incidents of him changing pictures and re-editing and actually changing the content of a picture, this wouldn't be much of a story. But when you have a track record now of it keep coming to light, then you kind of re-expose things and kind of like, what did he do here? So I think that's why it kind of brings up the ethical, talk about this all over again.
And every
no, go ahead, Sam.
And every photo that, obviously, this isn't gone viral, but this is a viral photo in the time period or whatever. Even though it was the 80s when it originally was published. And every photographer that has had a photo that has gone wildly viral gets these questions, and whether they hold up or not. Oh my God, I'm blanking on his name. Part of the Bang Bang Club, who photographed the vulture. Yeah. And like he was driven. He already had issues. He was driven to have some deep issues because of the questioning. If you the book and the movie kind of push that idea at least. And I on my photo of DeAndre Harris being attacked, continually ethics being thrown at me, whether or not I should have gotten involved, and whether I should have tried to beat up 6 white supremacists instead of just taking photos and things like that being thrown at you. And so you end up getting this criticism, and that's whether or not it holds up or not isn't what ended up happening. One of my biggest problems from this, not even talking about his photo ethical issues, past and present, is the fact that no one at Nat Geo seemed to try to find this woman until 2 years ago. It's just when I'm trying to figure out when this article, they did a piece. It's 2002. They actually did a piece. It took that long to actually even try to find her, and try to dig and try to figure out who she is, and no one cared basically, probably until Afghanistan became a news story again in April, in 2001 and 2002, and that just seems odd. If a photo that, I don't know whether it made Steve McCurry's career or not, but there was, it becomes no follow-up whatsoever, and no genuine caring about your subject to some level. That just seems weird to me. That always has been I know enough right there. There's enough there, because this photo didn't do anything. It's not like the vulture photo, where that photo spawned an entire movement. I mean, I remember the photo as a child coming out and caring about the African famine, and suddenly, because that's what everyone was talking about. I mean, everything kind of spawned out of that. That photo was a driving issue more than Live Aid, more than almost than anything else. And it seems weird that they didn't get to this until 17 years late. Yeah, 17 years later. Like, and and still it's like, and it's like, I get it. Afghanistan is its own. It's not even Somalia, where you could at different points in the years travel is easy. But it's shocking to me that Nat Geo, who I massively respect, National Geographic and the editors and everything, but it's just surprising that when your career is made so much off of one photo. I mean, I would bet that 99% of people in the world, if they know Steve McCurry, they know him only because of that photo, literally only because of that photo. And even though he's had many other photos that they also maybe recognize or whatever if they're later on, but like only because of that photo, like I personally would have, some sort of level of being like, I wonder how she's doing. Like we not, that country had been taken over by the Taliban and women aren't doing that well in that country right then. And I've made a small fortune off of this photo. Maybe I should check out something. Maybe I should spend some of that money and follow up on that story, even as a freelancer, even if Nat Geo is not, anyway, that's my biggest gripe.
they did create some kind of fund for Afghan girls of like $1 million or something like that. They came out of that. There was some
from that time period or like later on, because I know they've done it especially since 2002. They've done quite a bit.
Yeah, later. It's probably more recent.
Yeah, it's weird, and it's not Nat Geo. It's like, as a photographer, like I don't know, it was like my curiosity, if nothing else. Like, it's maddening to me. I have not been able to get an interview with DeAndre Harris because he's just not doing interviews since the day after I took the photo of him that went viral and everything. And not only just because I want to make sure he's doing okay, but I mean he ended up using that photo and another photo they took of him, and he had a GoFundMe of like, I think it raised up to like $85,000. So I don't have necessarily any guilt on that end, but like, as in, if I've made any money from this photo, but it's just always been a weird thing, and it tells me, I don't know, maybe it tells me too much, that maybe I'm thinking too deep into it as a photojournalist, but yeah.
What disturbed me just the most about that, this is my last kind of comment on it, on the whole thing, but what disturbed me the most was the characterization of what was going through her mind, that whoever was the caption writer,
right,
basically put under was that coming from Steve? I don't know, doubtful. I know they've got entire groups of writers who basically create written content around the photography. So, and I'm sure back then it was the same thing, but it was like, oh, the eyes reflect her fear of war or whatever.
Yeah.
And then it's basically like, no, she's just afraid of this, big white guy pointing a camera at her face 3 feet away, who's, she shouldn't be in the same room with, because she's not allowed to be with a man, other than, her family, her father in that particular. So, I mean, that whole layering on, that is what objectifies, to me, your subject, even more than what the photo did, is turning these people who are your subjects into stories, and that to me is like a violation of their story, which, I mean, I don't know on the scale or of violations where that sits, but that seems to be like a more unequivocal problem with that whole process. So,
but do you think back then no one questioned like these august publications like Nat Geo and these august big shot photographers with all their reputations, and it's part of the culture, I guess.
Yeah.
No one went deep into it or just took it at face value. And it's like now in culture generally, people are much more aware, much more open to criticize things and fight. So I guess people let them get away with it in a sense.
back then they didn't. There's really no choice, right? Like now we've got Instagram feeds like Everyday Africa or Everyday,
Yeah.
Afghanistan or something. But back then, what National Geographic said was generally what was to be thought about by the particular country.
Well,
So that's really changed.
And Nat Geo now is currently, I think they're starting to kind of like look into that a lot more. There's been quite a bit written about kind of Nat Geo coming to terms with, you look at their legacy, like as a person who collected National Geographics as a kid, to photos of all kinds, and like, thank God, I guess I never read that. Never reading a cat. You're like, actually, like that never seeped into my mind, the kind of colonial look at which Nat Geo has had very much up until it made it into the 2000s. Like kind of look into the world on how they picture basically people outside of the coasts, even when they do rural coverage, it's kind of been cowboys and that's about it. Like there's not, which I think most publications have had certain issues about that, but National Geographic, I would hope you would think would be a little bit better than that. But yeah, it's been weird because there's been a handful of the Vox. I'm blanking on her name right now. I've just been talking to her and trying to convince her to come on the show. But the Vox visual editor, if you follow her Twitter feed, which I'll post in the links, she has a lot of really great conversations about how not only people of color in the United States, but also how internationally people are pictured in American either wires or just American publications in general. After there was a mass shooting at a I think it was in the Congo, and the Times, I think it was, ran a full photo like spread of dead bodies with blood and everything like that, and just the fact that she did a really great comparison of how we cover mass shootings in America versus mass shootings in Africa, and we would never show dead children on the ground at a school shooting or something like that, even if there were photos of those things taken. Sandy Hook, we don't have any photos of I've ever seen, at least published, of children dead on the ground, blood everywhere, but we have thousands of them in Africa, in the mall shootings that, even respectable like Tyler Hicks and things like that, photographers have taken. And so it's like she started a really great discussion about how we, at least photo editors especially, choose to even publish those photos. And so
I think it's interesting too, going back to the Steve McCurry thing, is that if you try to look at the link, we talked about this earlier, like that story is gone. It's not on Petapixel anymore. The video has been taken down.
I bet it was a copyright.
Was it a copyright thing?
I would bet that they used the photo, understandably, and YouTube has a horrible understanding of copyright infringement on both ways. I still have entire versions of a documentary that I produced that are online that they won't take down, even though I'm like, yeah, no, I co-produced that film. Please take it down. I don't want it on YouTube, and it's still up there. But if National Geographic says to somebody doing a fair use discussion of a photo, they'll still take it down.
Wow.
I mean, it's the same thing with that's why like music, fair use music discussions can't happen for the most part. Or like I do a movie review podcast, and I even just put like little clips that we're talking about. And if I try to monetize it at all, it's just taken down immediately. So yeah.
Is this National Geographic being still very sensitive about the subject?
I have that I don't know. I don't know if YouTube actually happening. I'm just assuming that's probably why it's down. Is because it probably was hit with a copyright issue. National Geographic has been the last time we talked about Steve McCurry, they were still very defensive of him, defending him quite a bit. But I don't know about this recently. I haven't seen any response from them.
I didn't see the story anymore on Petapixel, but I did see it on DIYphotography.net.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's so they can copyright strike it on YouTube, but to actually take it down off Petapixel, I mean, that must have been a DMCA notice or something like that if they really were that adamant about not being, or Petapixel took it down because the video went down.
Well,
I
if
don't
the
know.
video's dead, then there's not too much of a story, I guess, probably. But yeah, it's hard to say. Who knows?
Okay. Well, we'll follow up with that and see what the true story is, and not play the conspiracy theory game.
We'll do a whole
sure
YouTube video about the conspiracy.
Ooh, I like it.
That's the way YouTube works.
Deep state Afghan girl. It's all deep state Afghan girl.
Zach, I need you to make that video, and then we're gonna put it on our Patreon a week before you can see it on YouTube, because that's what you get if you go on follow us on Patreon.
I'll have to file some FOIA requests.
We do a lot more conspiracy theory stuff. We're gonna hit it big.
Oh yeah,
it all goes back to Rupert Murdoch. I know.
Oh man, and the Illuminati. But yeah, go to Patreon, see all our content early there. You can subscribe, become a member, and all that fun stuff. But I do want to thank our guest so much for being on the show. I gotta let Yui go. He's probably gonna be falling asleep in his computer right now.
20 minutes before he's got
20 to 4.
He's got 20 minutes.
Are you just gonna stay up, Yui, or are you gonna go try and get a few Z's?
Oh,
That's okay.
brutal. I can't do that.
Travis can tell you about the time he worked 24 hours straight without sleep, right, Travis?
It killed me. It wasn't too long ago.
Pull it keys.
Yeah.
But we are getting towards the end of our show. Of course, I want to give Yui and Alex a chance to plug what they would like to plug. I'll start with you, Yui. Is there anything you'd like to direct people towards?
Not really.
Okay. Easy.
Do you have a portfolio site or
I've just let my Squarespace website go of many years, partly because I've been reading about this Squarespace business. So I'm going to go with someone else. So I'm in between websites, but I'm on Twitter at UEMark, not on Facebook, barely on Instagram, and just if you Google my name, my stuff is out there. So.
All right, I like that. It's like, I'm on Google. Google me. You'll find me. And we could Google Alex Garcia, but is there a more direct way to find your work, Alex?
AlexanderGarcia.com. Couldn't get Alex Garcia. Still hoping, but I've got Alexander Garcia. And
Okay.
I could plug something. I've got 2 spots left for my workshop in Havana. We go to Havana, Trinidad, and Cienfuegos. We're going to be there for May Day. So that will be fun. And
first, I want to jump in here because I've been to Cuba with you, and I can explain firsthand what an experience it is with you. And I wouldn't have had such an incredible love affair for an affinity for Cuba if it wasn't for you. Because not only do you have family there, and it's home for you. Your command of photography, your command of just speaking to people in Cuba allowed for moments and for things that you don't normally get just traveling to Cuba. So anyone would be incredibly lucky just to not alone just spend time with you, but to go to Cuba with you through your eyes and your mentorship, because it was a fabulous experience being there with you.
Thank you. Thanks. That's really nice. I appreciate it. Yeah. So I'll pay you later.
Sponsored by
Travis. This is how Travis makes a living.
I gotta tell you though, the thing that's great about Travis is like you travel with him and like people come alive. Like just he's got a way with people. It's just fantastic to watch.
Even when I don't speak the language, it happens.
Even if you don't speak the language, and that's actually a post that I might write about on the Alpha Universe. Just about how to just take pictures in foreign environments when you don't speak the language.
And if people are interested in Sony cameras, what are you doing into Cuba?
Yes.
You're bringing a lot of Sony cameras.
Actually, I left out the best part, right? and you're gonna love this because Zach, I know you're just gonna jump on this, but everyone who goes on my trip is gonna get an A7R3 for the week with 2 lenses on top of it to use free.
So what if we just disappear into the Cuban countryside with the camera? Because then I might go.
Don't go back to the States. Stay in Cuba then.
Yeah, you gotta stay there. It's been known to happen.
Yeah.
5 years later, you see, it's like, is that Zach photographing the Castro?
We haven't seen him for 5 years, but he's got amazing content now.
Wait, is
Well,
he?
he'll
Is,
have
wait, did he
5-year-old
just
camera.
overthrow the Castro government again, coming down the hills in July?
We almost left Travis behind. He almost was like, I don't want to go. I'm going.
Awesome. All right, Travis. Speaking of Travis, anything you want to throw out there, Travis?
Obviously, if you have
Already
follow-up questions on anything about Sony or about us or any of the topics today, reach out to us at Around the Lens or at traviswkeys.com or my Instagram at TWKEYES. You can track me there for anything that I do.
Well, there you go. You can always also email us at info@aroundthelens.com or find all our contact information, like Travis said, on aroundthelens.com. It's all posted on there. Zach, anything for us before we go?
I got two things. So I'll be at Northern Short Course. So if you're a photojournalist and you're at Northern Short Course, please DM me because I'm trying to do short little 5-minute interviews about you and your work.
What are those dates?
While I'm there? It is the 7th, 8th, and 9th. In New Jersey, Iceland, New Jersey. But you can go to just Google Northern Short Course and all the info will be there. And it's looks like some really, really cool guests are going to be there. Highly recommend going if you haven't already. if you haven't already signed up. Also, the Washington Post just they interviewed me about the Charlottesville photos, and they did a huge piece about the 2 last missing people that are there, and it's a really interesting breakdown and kind of discussion about like the 2 people that are still missing from that attack, DeAndre Harris.
Oh, wow.
And it was actually, I guess, on A1 of the Washington Post today. So please check that out. I'll add the link in the show notes.
Great. And speaking of the Washington Post, our guests next week will be Melina Mara, who was featured on the Washington Post Top 100 list, and Elijah Nuvalej. That's March 11th. So can't wait to see what kind of content. We got some special stuff. Obviously, Zach's working on for Northern Shore Course that will be either pushed out around that time or afterwards. And then, of course, we've got a great episode next week with those 2 awesome guests. And we'll be back to our normally scheduled live stream. If you missed the live stream this week, I apologize. But we'll be back to our normally scheduled technical perfection that we normally have, right?
One more thing. If you have any questions about the Nikon Z6 and that you're wondering about it before you buy, or if you bought it, put a comment in the links here. Just shoot me a message at ZD Roberts on Twitter because I'm going to keep doing a series of reviews about the camera now that I've used it, and just wondering because I was really hesitant about picking it up because there wasn't, as a photojournalist, there wasn't really a lot written about it or even on YouTube or anything like that. So if you have any questions, please shoot me a thing and I'll do like a short little video about it if I can figure out what the answer to the question is. So, yeah.
And if you want to know why not to buy a Nikon camera, just read my hot take from Petapixel from like 6 months.
Yeah.
See, actually, Zach, we're going to have a Sony Pro rep on the workshop as well. So I won't have to answer any questions. I can just upload them.
Look, I have absolutely nothing against the Sony cameras. If I didn't have like my Nikon lenses, if I wasn't an NPS member, if I didn't just love the color of Nikon, and I know I'm in the minority for a lot of people. I love Nikon video. Like I love the way it looks. And if I didn't have those things, I would have switched to Sony in a heartbeat. I wanted to switch to a mirrorless camera because I have the same problems. I'm getting old. And oh my God, it's so much easier carrying this camera around. Like even with a big honking lens but like the adapter is super light. So it hasn't really but like just shooting with it is so much more easy. Like it's not like picking it up every time and shooting telephoto, even with the telephoto, shooting with the telephoto with the adapter on, it's ridiculous because it's like adds another inch onto like I was shooting with the lens hood on the telephoto at I think I must have been in Mexico or something, and it was just ridiculous. It like was staying out the window of the cab I was driving in, but even with that, like it's just so much easier to shoot with, and never mind all the other technical, things. I mean, if you get a chance, switch to mirrorless at this point. Like, I think I probably, I'm sure you can go back to old episodes and I'm like, no, mirrorless, continue shooting on DSLR. It's not photojournalism if you shoot I'm sure there's old ones. I was lying. I was wrong.
Just the advancements in the last 2 years. I mean, I could understand a year, even 2 years ago, saying, don't switch. But at this point, it's.
Oh yeah, no, totally.
Yeah.
I mean, even then, the Sonys were pretty damn amazing. I mean, I've switched completely to the Sony memory cards, so I'm Sony in that way. The Sony tough cards,
baby steps.
Oh my god, the Sony tough cards are amazing.
Tough cards are amazing.
I can't wait to switch over. To everything. I mean, I think I have a Sony QXD card because there's not really any other options. But I don't think there is. But anyway, yeah. So my world is Sony and Nikon and Sigma. But, yeah.
Nice. Well, I've been shooting mirrorless for almost 5 years now. So
wow.
Your Panasonic is coming out soon, right?
What's that? Oh yeah, April 8th, I believe, is when the new Panasonic comes out. I'm still on the fence. But if I get it, I'm gonna.
The specs are amazing. I mean, I will admit, the specs are amazing, and it looks like a real camera. It doesn't look like a little toy. Yeah. So it's got that going for it.
I'm still on the fence. I want it, but then again, I don't think I can justify it. But if I do get it, I'm gonna have to sell everything I own. So we'll see.
Just have like a 50 millimeter lens, and that's it. Like.
Well, I'll probably just get like the
not much love for Canon on the show, is there?
Usually there is.
I still have a Canon. I have a 5D Mark IV. I still use it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love Canon. I was a big proponent and shooter of Canon. The 5D Mark II was an awesome camera. I love that camera, but Canon just doesn't innovate. Canon just doesn't innovate in the world of video anymore. I mean, they're just it's sad, honestly.
I just can't. Sorry.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Alex.
No, I was just gonna say. It's just I switched over and using the Sony now, and I'm like, really? Like nobody has a better looking solution? I mean, it just feels like there's if you want to get all the things that you could get with the C100, it's got to end up kind of looking like a Rube Goldberg apparatus, and I'm like. Come on, guys! Somebody come up with something that makes it just look and feel.
I just want a full body DSLR or even a full body like mirrorless camera, like like a D5 or something like that has an XLR import. Like one, I'd be fine with one, so I can have a shotgun directly into the camera. Like I'm so tired of these stupid, mini headphone inputs that detach so easily.
Well, and if you had a Sony, the hot shoe on the Sony actually has that. It has a device you just put into the hot shoe.
Yeah, but it's still like a half job. I want something built in that actually like can take a beat. Like the stuff I've tried.
To put an XLR jack in, you'd have to really increase the size.
No. But it's still just attached to the top, and it's still like I've looked into all the different situations, and nothing for run and gun shooting in. When you're going to potentially get roughed up and you can't have cables hanging all over the place, things like that. You just can't do it. I have a separate little box that I attach to the bottom Tascam thing, which works fine, except it doesn't sync really well. Like the audio quality on the sync kind of sucks. Right. But if I want to sync later on, it's fine. But I still have like these cables running back and forth across the camera. And it's just like, I just want one cable with a shotgun mic. Like, I don't know why this is so tough that's not a headphone input. Like, why is this so difficult? The D5 is like this massive, ridiculous thing. Some of them have freaking Ethernet cable connections. I mean, like why not just an XLR import or some modification like that it can actually lock or screw in? Are you listening, Nikon,
That's what
Sony,
video
Canon?
Cameras are for.
I know, but everybody's shooting on DSLR now. So, like, I like my 35 millimeter 1.4 to shoot video. Like, I love that. I don't have that on a video camera unless I want to spend like $10,000.
I feel like I could make something in like one of those. What do you call those like things that create
the 3D printer? I can
3D printer.
Do that at home, man. I got one of those plastic doodlers. I can just draw.
Yeah, I just create this thing that looks like a glove and it just has everything.
I want it. Yeah. I'll buy it. I'll be your first. I'll be the first person to kickstart that. Okay.
That's a market opportunity.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah. For one person.
That was the longest plug session we've ever had.
This is going to be one of the longest episodes we've ever had.
Yes.
I'll cut
We
it
should
off
end
pretty soon here.
so that Yui can go to sleep.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
We're just gonna
Yui's
stay
gonna
up.
doze off
We're
at
just
some
gonna stay
point
up with you.
today.
We're here for you.
Let's hit the cycle, man. No.
Well, anyways, I do want to thank our guests, Yui and Alex. Thank you guys so much for being a part of the show. I truly appreciate it.
It's been fun and a great experience.
Thank you.
There's a hesitation there, but I like it.
And I know, Alex, you'll be back with us in a couple weeks.
Sure, absolutely.
Yep.
Whatever you guys
Yep.
want.
That's you on again. Yep.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
Yeah, Yui, Alex, you're both always welcome back. And again, thank you so much for being a part of the show. For Travis Keys and Zach Roberts, I am David J. Murphy. This has been episode 164 of Around the Lens, and we are out. Thanks for tuning into Around the Lens. We hope you enjoyed the show and hope you'll join us next week. In the meantime, go to AroundTheLens.com for show notes from tonight's episode, as well as links to our Patreon, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages. We're also always looking for new and exciting guests to feature on each show, so if you know somebody who might be interested, let them know.